Imagine finding out that someone in your own family, someone who should protect you and your child, was capable of sabotaging everything and still looking you in the eye as if nothing had happened. That's what happened to Ryan. A father who only wanted to take care of his family but had to face the most unexpected betrayal, that of his own mother-in-law. But what she did goes beyond anything you can imagine. She didn't just try to separate a couple, she messed with a child's identity. She manipulated a DNA test to destroy a family. But she forgot one detail that would change everything. The doctor recorded it. If you've ever lived or witnessed a moment where the truth seemed invisible, stay with me. This story is for you. It will move you, revolt you. But in the end, it will remind you that the truth always finds its way, and that justice, even silently, always arrives. If you believe in the power of stories that touch the heart and transform lives, subscribe to the channel. Here, you are never alone. Ryan had always had a strange feeling about his mother-in-law, Margaret. Something in her eyes, that dry, controlling gleam, seemed to hide more than just maternal concern. But that day at the hospital, he tried to ignore the chill running down his spine. Olivia held his hand tightly, and they anxiously awaited the results of little Noah's DNA test. There was no apparent reason for doubt, but the family's tension over the past few months made everything more sensitive. His mother-in-law, as always, was present, and too present. She had offered to take Olivia to her appointments, suggested the lab, talked to the doctor. "It's just protocol," she said. "Better to confirm everything so there's no doubt." But why so much insistence? Ryan never understood. And when Margaret got up to take a call in the hallway, whispering as if she were hiding something, something lit up inside him. At that same moment, Dr. Alan Green appeared in the doorway of the room with a confused expression. His eyes sought Ryan. "Can we talk in private?" he asked. Ryan's heart beat faster. Olivia frowned. "Is everything okay?" she asked nervously. "Yes, it is," the doctor replied, but his voice sounded hesitant, like someone who knew more than he could say at that moment. The door closed behind them, and the hallway fell silent. Margaret reappeared shortly after, smiling as if she knew a secret. Ryan didn't know it yet, but this was the beginning of an avalanche. A silent, cruel avalanche, and orchestrated within the family itself. Dr. Alan Green closed the door carefully, as if every gesture needed to be measured. Ryan, already with his chest tight, felt that something was about to collapse. The doctor took a deep breath before speaking, looking him in the eyes with a seriousness that was rarely seen in doctors' offices. "Ryan, the test data was altered, but luckily I recorded everything." At that moment, it was as if the ground had disappeared. "Altered? What do you mean?" Ryan felt his entire body freeze. "Recorded?" he repeated, trying to understand. Dr. Green then explained that there was something unusual going on behind the scenes. The original material collected from Noah was compatible with Ryan's genetic data, but in the system, the results were tampered with, and the attempted tampering was done by someone outside the medical team. Clearly intentional interference. The recording the doctor was referring to came from an internal security camera in the lab. "I shouldn't even tell you this now," he said, "but as a parent, you deserve to know." The video showed Margaret fiddling with a folder that was supposed to be locked. This, coupled with a change in the lab's entry protocols, raised all suspicions. It was more than a mistake. It was sabotage. Ryan left the room as if in a trance. Olivia was still waiting for him, anxious, unaware that at that moment her trust in her mother was about to be irreversibly shaken. But how could she tell him this? How could she destroy the image of someone she had always seen as a protector? Ryan looked at Margaret from a distance. She was smiling, a calm, almost triumphant smile. And it was there that he knew something much bigger was behind that exam. Ryan decided, for now, not to tell Olivia anything, not for lack of courage, but out of respect for the love she had for her mother. He needed proof, something concrete that would make her see what was happening, and not just hear it. But hiding something like that also ate away at him inside. Every moment with his wife was accompanied by a silent pain, a guilt that he hadn't even caused but was already carrying. In the days that followed, Margaret seemed even more present. She offered to help with the baby, brought ready-made meals, and even suggested that Ryan take a few days off. "You've been so tense, honey," she would say, in that sweet, manipulative voice. It was as if she knew exactly what he was going through inside, and was taking advantage of it. Ryan realized Margaret wasn't just controlling, she was strategic. That same weekend, Dr. Green contacted Ryan. He had more records that showed movement behind the scenes in the system. The lab password used to alter the report came from an account associated with Margaret's former assistant, who had been fired over a year ago. Coincidence? Impossible. It was as if all the pieces were starting to fit together into a dark puzzle. Even so, Ryan still needed one essential piece, Olivia's trust. But how to tell a new mother that her own mother tried to sabotage her family? How to talk about betrayal without destroying bonds that seemed unbreakable? And then, a dangerous idea began to emerge in his mind. A way to show his wife everything, without saying a word. Ryan decided to act, not on impulse, but out of love. And love sometimes requires courage in silence. He discreetly installed a camera in the living room, camouflaged among the books on the bookshelf. He knew Margaret spent a lot of time there when she visited. If there was something to reveal, she would reveal it without knowing she was being seen. The next morning, he kissed Olivia goodbye on the forehead and said he would spend the day taking care of some pending matters. Inside, his heart was pounding, not out of fear, but out of anticipation of finding out how far his mother-in-law was willing to go. Throughout the day, he used his cell phone to remotely monitor the camera. Hours passed without anything major happening until, toward the end of the afternoon, Margaret entered the room, alone. She picked up her cell phone, made a call, and began to talk. But it was no ordinary conversation. It was a disguised confession. "Yes, I did what had to be done. Ryan doesn't deserve that boy. Olivia was blind. I had to act." She kept talking, as if it were just another household chore. "Don't worry, he'll never know. And even if he does, who's going to believe him? I'm his grandmother, for God's sake." The coldness with which he said everything was frightening. Ryan stopped the video. His hand was shaking. He had the proof. His heart was breaking too. It was like watching an emotional murder, not with weapons, but with words. And now, with the footage saved, there was no going back. The truth had a face. And that face was that of the woman who was supposed to protect, not destroy, her family. That night, Ryan couldn't sleep. He sat by Noah's crib, watching his son breathe, so small, so innocent. And yet at the center of a web of lies, he knew he couldn't keep it in any longer. Olivia deserved to know, but he also knew that the pain of the truth could be more cruel than the lie itself. The next morning he called Olivia to talk. The air was tense. "I need to show you something. And it's going to hurt," he said, his eyes welling up. Olivia, frightened, sat on the couch. He played the video. With every second, her expression changed. First disbelief, then sadness, and finally an expression that Ryan would never forget. Profound disappointment. She couldn't speak. She just cried. The pain of discovering that her own mother had conspired against her family was like a stab in the back of her neck. "Why would she do that?" she repeated, almost voiceless. "What makes a mother betray her daughter like that?" Ryan hugged her tightly, and for a while, they stood there, in silence, as if they were picking up the pieces of what had once been an entire world. Olivia didn't want to believe it, but there was no denying it. The evidence was there. It wasn't rumors or assumptions. It was her mother's voice. It was poison camouflaged as care. But the worst was yet to come, because Margaret didn't know she had been unmasked, and facing her would be the true test of courage. On Sunday, Margaret showed up as usual, with a cake in her hand and a forced smile on her face. The same woman who just a few hours earlier had talked about eliminating Ryan from her daughter's life was now sitting on the couch in their house as if nothing had happened. But something was different that day. Olivia was silent, looking at her mother as if she were seeing a stranger's true face for the first time. Ryan remained calm but firm. He picked up the remote control and put the video on the television. Margaret was still playing with Noah when she heard her own voice echo in the living room. "Ryan doesn't deserve that boy." The silence that followed was brutal. She froze. She tried to hide it, laugh it off, say it was a montage. But Olivia stood up. And there, standing in front of her mother, she said, "There's no montage when you recognize the pain in the voice of the person speaking." Margaret tried to argue. She said she only wanted to protect her daughter, that Ryan couldn't be trusted, that she was just keeping Olivia from regretting it later. But it all sounded empty, desperate, as if she were trying to cover the sun with a sieve. Olivia cried, but she didn't waver. The wound was too real to be covered up with excuses. It was the first time Margaret realized that she had lost control. Her daughter was no longer a frightened girl. She was a wounded woman, yes, but a determined one. And in that moment, a decision was made without anyone having to say it out loud. The masks fell. And whatever came next would have to be lived with the naked truth, even if it hurt. After the confrontation, the house was silent for days. A thick silence, loaded with everything that could no longer be put into words. Margaret tried to call, text, even show up at the door. But Olivia didn't answer. For the first time in her life, she was choosing to walk away. It was like ripping a piece of her own body out, but there were wounds that only began to heal after a clear cut. Olivia plunged into a strange mourning for a mother who was still alive, but who no longer existed in the way she knew it. She was always controlling, she confessed to Ryan, but I thought it was concern. I wanted to believe it was love. The confusion between care and manipulation hurt even more than the betrayal. It was hard to accept that love sometimes comes with invisible thorns. Ryan, in turn, felt torn between the relief of seeing the truth come to light and the pain of seeing Olivia broken. He knew that the healing process would be slow. It wasn't just about forgiving or forgetting, but about rebuilding faith in who you are, in who you love, and in what you believe to be true. They needed time. And more than anything, they needed each other. It was at this stage that Olivia started writing. She put everything on paper, her anger, her hurt, her good and bad memories. It was the way she found to keep from going crazy. Ryan read everything in silence, with a heavy heart. Each word of hers was a small scar being revealed. And in the midst of so much chaos, a seed began to sprout, that of inner liberation. Months passed. The house no longer had the same weight in the air, but it still carried memories. Olivia was firm in her determination not to allow her mother's presence again until there was true repentance, and not just apologies. Margaret tried to send letters, even attended religious services and posted messages about forgiveness on social media. But Olivia didn't want public gestures. She wanted real, intimate, profound transformation. Ryan, seeing everything up close, was surprised by his wife's strength. She hadn't become bitter. On the contrary, there was something new about her, a more mature, more serene faith. She began to talk about purpose, about how even pain can be part of a greater plan. "If it weren't for all this, I might never have woken up," she said one night. "I needed to see who was truly by my side, and you never let go of my hand." Noah grew up full of health, with an easy laugh and eyes that seemed to see beyond. Perhaps, without knowing it, he had been the angel who kept that family from falling apart completely. And the most beautiful thing was that Ryan and Olivia, even with the scars, had built something stronger, a union that was resistant to manipulation, based on truth and unconditional love. One morning, Ryan received a message from Dr. Green. "I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to say that I admire your courage. Not everyone would have done what you did." Ryan smiled, because yes, he was afraid. He had doubts, but he never gave up. And sometimes, the greatest courage is simply to keep loving, even when everything seems to want to make you stop. On a quiet afternoon, Olivia received a final letter from Margaret. It was not an attempt at a forced reconciliation. It was simple, handwritten, with shaky handwriting and words that did not apologize. They confessed. Margaret spoke of loneliness, of her fear of losing her daughter to a man she did not know well. She admitted that she had acted arrogantly, that she had crossed boundaries, and that she now understood the extent of the damage. Olivia read it in silence, then folded the letter carefully and put it in a box where she kept other memories, both good and bad. She did not respond. Not out of pride, but because some answers can only be given with time and with actions. Forgiving did not mean forgetting, nor did it mean allowing everything to go back to the way it was. It was simply freeing oneself from the weight of carrying resentment. Ryan watched Olivia with admiration. The woman who had once trembled upon learning of her own mother's betrayal now walked with a new lightness. She did not deny the pain, but she did not hold on to it either. It was as if she had found a new kind of faith, not just in God, but in life, in the quiet justice of time, and in the strength that lies within those who choose not to seek revenge. That night, Ryan held her close and said, "You are the strongest woman I know." She smiled, tired, but at peace. And perhaps for the first time since it all began, they lay down without fear of what tomorrow would bring. Because they knew. The truth may hurt, but it also heals. And when peace comes, it doesn't need to make noise. It just needs to be real. There are pains that teach us more than any advice. Ryan and Olivia went through what many would never bear, a blow from within their own family. And yet, they chose not to become bitter. They chose to rebuild, not by forgetting, but with the truth and the courage to move forward. Margaret tried to manipulate fate, but she forgot that true love does not bow to lies, and that where there is faith, there is strength. Because sometimes God does not free us from the storm. He teaches us to go through it with firm feet and a clean heart. This story reminds us that the truth can be painful, yes, but it is also liberating, and that, no matter how much they try to turn off the light, the truth always lights up again, inside us. What about you? Have you ever experienced something similar? Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace or facing the truth? Tell us in the comments. Your story might touch someone. If this story touched you, like it. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel.